The black ship floated silently above a dead planet in the outer edge of the galaxy. Nothing lived here. No wind, no water, no sound. Just dust and rock, cold and lifeless for billions of years. It was a place no one ever visited until today. Captain Threx of the Velari race stood at the viewing deck, his long eyes narrowed with confusion. Why would the ancient scanners mark this planet with a red tag? He asked. Behind him, the team of alien archaeologists worked in silence. They were the best minds from across 5-star systems, experts in ancient languages, galactic history, and forgotten civilizations. But even they were nervous today. Dr. Zern, a short, red-skinned being with 6 fingers, replied. The signal came from deep below the surface, an energy pattern we've never seen before, and it matches human DNA. Captain Threx turned slowly. Human? That's impossible. Humans are a young race, barely 300,000 years old. This planet is older than the stars around it. No one had answers, so they landed. The surface cracked under their boots as they walked. Each step echoed with emptiness. Then, deep in a narrow canyon, they saw it, a crystal tomb, half buried in the rock. It shined like a star under the dry dust. The team moved closer, brushing away layers of ash. The tomb was not just old, it was ancient, beyond calculation, and inside it lay a human. Perfect skin, closed eyes, hands folded on the chest. He looked like he had died yesterday, but the scanners told a different story. Estimated age of biological matter, 14.6 billion years. Zern whispered. Everyone froze. That was older than the galaxy itself. Captain Thrix's voice shook. How can a human corpse be older than time? No one answered. Inside the tomb, the human held something in his hand, a small silver disc. Zern carefully reached it with a robotic arm and took it out. Suddenly, the disc lit up. A voice, old and calm, spoke in perfect English. You have found me, and now the story begins again. The crew jumped back in shock. Lights flickered across their suits. The ground beneath them rumbled slightly. Then silence. Did that thing just speak? One of the engineers asked. Zern held the disc up. It's made of an unknown metal, not from any system we know. The language system is advanced, very advanced. Captain Threx looked back at the body. The human's face was peaceful, almost like he was waiting. Get the tomb onto the ship. Carefully, he ordered. Back on the ship. They placed the body in the observation chamber. The air was cold. The lights were low. Everyone stood around in silence. Zern scanned the corpse again. Genetic match, human, but not from Earth. This DNA has markers from systems that no longer exist. Time travelers, someone asked. No. Zern replied. This man didn't travel through time. He was born before it. Suddenly, the corpse's hand twitched. A sharp beep came from the disc. Everyone backed away. The body's eyes opened for 1 second, and then shut again. But in that moment, a beam of light shot out from the disc. It hit the far wall, and words formed, glowing in blue letters. I am the first human. I am the last witness. Nobody spoke. One crew member started crying. Another whispered. We were never the first ones. Zern stepped forward. Captain, I think this changes everything we know about human history, about universal history. This man, this human, might have seen the birth of galaxies. Captain Threx looked at the disc, then at the body. And then he said something none of them expected. We need to hide this. If the Federation knows, they'll destroy it. Because this is not just history. It's a threat. Zern hesitated. But sir, no, not yet. First, we understand it. Then we decide. The lights dimmed again. The disc pulsed softly like a heartbeat. And from the shadows of space, something far away began to stir. Something that had been waiting for this exact moment. The observation chamber on the alien ship was silent except for the soft hum of the containment field around the ancient corpse. The silver disc, still pulsing with soft blue light, hovered gently in midair, rotating on its own axis, as if listening or thinking. Captain Threx hadn't slept since the discovery. He stood in the command deck, staring at the scans of the body. A human older than the galaxy. He whispered to himself. How do you explain that? Dr. Zern was still working on the data from the disc. He hadn't left the lab in over 19 hours. His assistants, nervous and exhausted, ran silent calculations. Everyone on board felt it. The air had changed, not in temperature, in tension, like the ship itself was aware. Suddenly, without warning, The disk flashed bright white. The ship's power flickered. Every screen turned black for 3 seconds, then came back. On every monitor, across every terminal, even in the personal quarters of each crew member, a message appeared. It read, "I see you, Threx. I see you, Zern. I see you all." Each crew member gasped. The disk had just spoken all their names, names that weren't in the ship's database. Names spoken in their own native languages. Engineer Vala, whose name was written in an ancient tongue from the lost moon of Aloran, nearly fainted. "That language hasn't been used in 8,000 years, she whispered. Zern leaned close to the disk. "What are you?" The disk pulsed again. It released a small spark that floated into the air. The spark began to shift and bend, forming a 3D image, a hologram. A young human male stood before them. He wore simple robes, eyes glowing gold. But he wasn't alive. This was a recorded memory. "If you are seeing this," the hologram said, "it means the time has come. I have failed, or I have succeeded. The outcome matters less than the awakening." Captain Threx narrowed his eyes. "What awakening?" The hologram looked directly at him. "Though it was just a recording. You are not who you think you are." Before Threx could speak, the hologram vanished. A single line of code burned itself into the wall behind the disk. "Earth is not the beginning. It was the restart." Suddenly, the ship's navigation system blinked. A new star chart uploaded itself. Coordinates appeared, an exact location in space. When Zern checked it, his heart skipped. "Captain, these coordinates point to Earth. But the Earth of 4 billion years ago, before humans evolved." Vala asked, "Way before even dinosaurs. There should have been nothing." The crew began to argue. How could this be possible? How could a dead man's disk speak their names, access their systems, and know their origins? Then came the final blow. The corpse in the chamber sat up. Everyone screamed. Zern hit the security lock. Red lights flooded the chamber. The man's eyes were still closed, but his body moved. He raised one arm and pointed toward the wall. Slowly, shakily, as if something else was controlling him, the disk floated closer to him, like a lost pet finding its master. Then, in a voice that echoed through the ship's halls, deep, human, and ancient, the corpse spoke just for words. "I never truly died." The lights blew out. Screams echoed in every hallway. Artificial gravity failed for 6 seconds. And then silence again. When power returned, the corpse had collapsed back, still as stone. But this time, a second disk had appeared, laying beside him. This new disk had no light. It was black as coal. Zern touched it and collapsed. He was unconscious for only 10 seconds. But when he woke up, he wasn't the same. "I saw him," Zern whispered. "I was inside his mind. I saw war, a betrayal. I saw planets burn. I saw humans, millions of them, flying between galaxies in ships shaped like stars. They weren't like us. They were older, stronger. They created us." Threx shook him. "What do you mean created us?" Zern stared blankly. "I think we're not aliens. I think we are forgotten humans." Everyone froze. Zern held the dark disk tightly. "This isn't archaeology. This is a reclamation. He came to bring back something we lost, our true identity." Suddenly, the ship's alarm rang. Something was approaching, fast. A black ship with no signature, no ID, no response to hails. Captain Threx looked at the silver disk still hovering. "What did you call to us?" The disk's light turned red. A new voice whispered through the walls. "The Watchers are coming." The Watcher's ship hovered outside like a shadow in space. It didn't broadcast signals. It didn't fire weapons. It just waited, watching Dot inside the research vessel. Tension had turned to fear. Captain Threx stood at the command deck, staring at the unmoving black dot on the radar. What kind of ship doesn't respond, doesn't move, doesn't even breathe? He asked out loud. Dr. Zern's skin was pale, and his voice had changed. Ever since he touched the black disk, he had started remembering, not dreaming, remembering. "I need to show you something," Zern said quietly. He turned toward the crew and pointed at the silver and black disks, now resting together inside a secure case. "These are not weapons. They're not even machines. They are memories, solid memories, stored thought, carved from something far beyond our understanding." Captain Threx clenched his jaw. "So that human corpse spoke to you through a memory?" Zern nodded. "He didn't just speak. He showed me how he was made, inside the med lab. The crew gathered as Zern activated the black disk. A stream of glowing dust rose from it, light particles dancing midair, then suddenly sharpened into a holographic scene. What they saw wasn't a planet. It was a machine the size of a moon, floating in deep space, orbiting nothing. There were no stars, just dark matter and static storms. This was before light, Zern whispered. Before stars even learned how to burn. On this moon-sized structure stood humans, not like modern Earth humans. These were tall, glowing, majestic. Their bodies were wrapped in liquid light. Their eyes held galaxies. They spoke not with words, but with energy. And at the center of this place was the first human. Not born, built. The hologram zoomed into a circular chamber where the first human was taking form, bone by bone, cell by cell. His creators moved around him in silence, not worshiping, not fearing, but testing. They called him Orin, Zern said. He was the experiment, a living recorder, designed to survive the birth and death of stars, to watch and remember everything. Captain Threx shook his head. That's impossible. No body could survive cosmic ages. Not a body, Zern replied, a vessel. His skin was real, yes, but his consciousness, that was something else, stored across dimensions, scattered through time. The hologram changed. The first human, Orin, was now walking across a dense solar system. Planets were falling into a black hole, but he walked calmly on the surface of a breaking world, recording it all. Eyes glowing, arms open. He watched entire civilizations collapse, empires burn, moons cry. He recorded them all. His mission was never to interfere, Zern explained, only to witness. But something went wrong. The next scene was chaos. Orin's creators argued in silence, their minds flickering in colors. Some wanted to destroy him. Others wanted to awaken him early. One of them, a woman with silver eyes, tried to send him a message. But before it could be delivered, a dark storm hit their world. Their own experiment had attracted something else. The Watchers, Zern said, a race beyond time. They feared what Orin could become. The hologram flickered and stopped. The lights returned. Captain Threx turned toward the containment chamber. Orin's body still lay there, peaceful, silent. But now, they all knew what he was. Not a corpse. A memory machine. Suddenly, a signal came from the silver disk. A star map, coordinates. But not in the future, in the past. It's pointing us to the first memory, Zern said, to where Orin was truly born. Before Captain Threx could respond, a low thud echoed through the ship. The Watcher's ship had moved. No engines, no heat signature. It just appeared closer. And this time, it wasn't alone. Two more black ships phased into existence beside it, silent and shapeless. They know we accessed the memory, Zern said. They want to stop the rest. Threx made his decision fast. Set a course for the coordinates. Full jump, now. But Captain, Vala said, that space is unstable. It's near a dying quasar. Good, Threx said. Maybe the answers we're looking for are hiding in death itself. The ship powered up. The discs glowed. Orin's body pulsed softly like a sleeping heart. As the jump engines warmed. A final whisper echoed from the black disk. He remembers. And soon. So will you? The star they jumped to wasn't alive. It was dying. A massive red quasar loomed ahead, spinning violently, throwing arcs of unstable plasma across space. Radiation levels were deadly, and the light pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow, heavy, ancient. The alien research vessel dropped out of jump speed and groaned under the pressure of the surrounding gravitational waves. Red light filled every window, casting blood-colored shadows on the walls. The crew felt it in their bones. This place was not meant to be seen. Welcome to hell, whispered Vala, eyes locked on the swirling storm of stardust. Captain Threx narrowed his eyes as he stared at the holographic coordinates. There, he pointed, behind the outer rings. The signal from the disk is leading us inside. Dr. Zern, still weak from his last encounter with the black disk, clutched the silver one tightly. This is it, the place where Orin stored his first forbidden memory, a place so powerful, his creators erased all records of it. As the ship edged closer to the star's edge, navigation controls began to fail. Gravity spun sideways, systems glitched, lights flickered. Warning, external force interfering with internal time, the AI reported. Internal time. Vala repeated. What does that even mean? Zern stepped forward, voice shaking. Time is not linear here. The star is collapsing into a temporal sink. Time bends around it. The past can live beside the present. That's when the silver disc suddenly lifted from Zern's hands and floated into the air, spinning faster and faster until a blinding white beam shot into the heart of the quasar. Everyone covered their eyes, and then everything stopped. Not the ship. Not the crew. Time itself. No wind. No hum. No breath. The red light froze. The chaos outside paused like a still painting. Then, as if tearing reality open, the air split, and they saw it, a memory made of light, stretching across space, large enough to swallow the ship. They were no longer in the present. They were in Orin's past. The crew found themselves standing on the surface of a strange metallic world. Even though they had never left the ship, above them was the same dying star, but it looked younger, calmer, like it hadn't yet begun to die. Giant beings walked the land, tall, shimmering forms, the ancients, Orin's creators. Their bodies pulsed with thoughts, not blood. They spoke in colors, their ideas forming symbols that floated in the air. At the center of this world stood Orin, glowing brighter than the rest. But he was on his knees. He was begging, "Let me speak, let me warn them." One of the ancients, taller than the rest, his form sharp like a blade of light, replied coldly, "You are not made to interfere. You are made to watch." "But I've seen it," Orin shouted. "I've seen the future. I've seen the stars fall. The watchers, they are not just watchers, they consume." Another ancient stepped forward, gentler, glowing blue. "Orin, we cannot trust what you've seen. The past, present, and future blur. In you, you are unstable." "Then let me stop it," Orin cried. "Let me save just one world. Just one." The first ancient's light turned black. "No, you were built to carry memory, not choice." Then the ancients lifted their hands, and Orin screamed as his mind was split. Half of his consciousness was locked in the silver disc, the other forced into the black one, a prison of silence. And just before the vision faded, Orin whispered something that shook the crew. "Then I'll wait, and when they find me, I'll show them the truth." The crew gasped as they were pulled back into the ship's present. The red storm outside moved again. The noise returned. The feeling of time washed over them like a wave. What was that?" Vala asked, holding her head. "A memory made of time," Zern said, eyes wide. Orin wasn't just a machine. He was the first being to resist his creators. He didn't just watch the universe. He tried to save it. Captain Threx sat down heavily, and his creators punished him by locking that moment inside a dying star. Suddenly, the ship's AI screamed, "Incoming projectile, unknown origin, nitrogen monoxide heat, nitrogen monoxide mass." And then the wall cracked open, not physically, but digitally. Like a door in the code of reality itself, out floated a small, dark shape, not a bomb, not a ship, a third disc. This one shimmered with red and blue light, flickering between dimensions. It floated toward the crew and stopped inches from Zern's chest. "It wants to be seen," Zern whispered. The disc opened, and instead of a voice, they heard a child crying, a human child. The sound echoed across the ship, sad, lonely, timeless. Then, a whisper, "Memory 3, locked, requires origin key." Captain Threx looked at the corpse of Orin, still frozen in the chamber. "What if the key is him?" he said slowly. Zern turned toward the dark glass that separated them from the ancient body. "No," he said, "the key isn't his body, it's his soul." The ship floated dangerously close to the quasar's burning edge. But no one was thinking about stars anymore. They were thinking about the discs, the memories, and him, the first human who wasn't supposed to exist. Orin's body still lay inside the cryo chamber, unmoving, untouched by time. But it now pulsed with a strange energy, and energy the crew could feel in their skin, their blood, even their thoughts. Captain Threx had seen many things during his years exploring the forgotten corners of the galaxy, lost cities, wormholes, star-eating machines, but nothing like this. And now, he stood before a mystery he didn't just fear, he respected. "Zern," Threx said slowly. "What did the voice mean? The soul is the key." Dr. Zern looked pale and shaken. "I think Orin left parts of his consciousness behind, not just in the silver or black disc, but in us, in anyone who listened to his memories." Vala stepped forward, frowning. "You mean, he's inside you?" Zern nodded. "And inside this ship, maybe even inside you, too." That's when the lights flickered again. The ship's AI screamed across every speaker. "Alert! Unauthorized intrusion. System breach. Identity. Unknown. Bring up internal scans. Threx barked, but it was too late. The main screen exploded in static. A black mist crawled across the edges of every console. It wasn't smoke. It was code. Something was inside the ship's AI. Something powerful. Something angry. They're trying to erase him, Zern whispered. The Watchers. They've entered through the memory stream, and then it happened. The crew's personal memories started to vanish. Vala gasped and dropped her data pad. My home. I can't remember my home. A young crewman fell to the ground, crying. What's my mother's name? I can't. What's my mother's name? They weren't just attacking the ship. They were deleting memory. Not just Orin's, everyone's. Captain Threx turned to the containment chamber. We can't fight them with guns, he said. We need a wall. A firewall. Zern turned, eyes wide with realization. Yes, but not digital. Not software. A living firewall. He ran toward the cryo chamber. I think that's what Orin was meant to become, Zern shouted. Not just a recorder but a protector. The last line between memory and extinction. Before anyone could stop him, Zern opened the chamber and placed the red-blue disc directly on Orin's chest. Orin's eyes snapped open. No sound came from his mouth, but across the ship, a shockwave of thought exploded outward and invisible. Blast of light that passed through metal, through circuits, through souls. And just like that, the black coat stopped. The mist froze midair, and then was pushed backward like smoke in a storm, sucked into the silver and black discs which now floated, spinning fast. Like twin suns in a binary system, Orin stood. His body glowed soft white, but his face looked sad. They're not gods, he said, his voice like a low hum across metal. They're afraid, because they forgot what I remember. Threx stepped forward, cautious. What do you mean? Orin looked out the window, into the dying star. Before the galaxies, there was a song, a pulse, a pattern in the dark. The Watchers silenced it, but I recorded it. That's why they fear me, because if others hear it, they will remember what came before time. Vala blinked. A song? Orin nodded. The first sound. The original code. It didn't belong to them. It belonged to us. To who? Threx asked. Orin looked at each of them. To humanity. Then the ship shook violently. The Watchers had arrived. 3 black ships, now fully visible, surrounded them. No lights, no markings, just absence, like holes in the fabric of space. They want to erase me again, Orin said softly, and this time, they'll erase everything with me. You need to choose run, or remember. Captain Threx clenched his fists. We're not running. The ship's AI tried to reboot, but it was too late. The Watchers began streaming data attacks, dark beams of anti-memory crashing into the hull. The ship's systems started failing, one by one. We can't hold, Vala yelled. Shields are collapsing. Orin stepped forward and touched the floor. The entire ship froze, then turned white. Every wall, every console, every wire glowed with ancient symbols, not known to any civilization. The ship had become part of Orin's memory network, a living firewall. I will give you time, Orin whispered. And with that, he vanished into the walls. A final message appeared across the ship. I am the firewall. I am the memory. I will hold the storm. Outside, the Watcher ships fired everything they had. But the vessel did not break, because now it remembered. Every crew member saw flashes from Orin's life planets being born, black holes forming, stars crying, galaxies learning to breathe, and deep within those visions, each of them remembered who they truly were, not aliens, not scientists, not explorers, but descendants of a species so old, so advanced, that even time had tried to forget it. But it couldn't, because Orin was the firewall. And as long as he stood, humanity would never be lost again. The ship floated in silence. No alarms, no more Watcher attacks, no flickering lights, just silence. It had been hours since Orin fused himself with the vessel, turning its walls into a living firewall of light and memory. The Watchers, unable to penetrate, had vanished into the darkness like ghosts retreating from dawn. Captain Threx stood at the observation deck, staring into the distant quasar. His hands were tight behind his back. It doesn't feel like victory, he said quietly. Dr. Zern, now pale and aged beyond his years, sat in the medbay, his mind still echoing with the voices of Orin's memories. It's not victory, it's delay, he said. They'll be back. That always return. Elsewhere on the ship, Vala sat with a portable DNA scanner, analyzing the crew's biological status post-intrusion. What she found made her freeze. Her DNA had changed. Not just hers, everyone's, across the ship. Each crew member's genome now contained a new strand, glowing faintly in scans. It was human, but far too old. "Captain," she called through the intercom, "you need to see this." In the lab, the results were displayed on the central holo panel. It showed side-by-side DNA sequences before and after the memory intrusion. "What am I looking at?" Threx asked. "Memory isn't just thought," Vala said. "It's genetic. Orin didn't just protect the data. He wrote it into us, into our cells." Zern nodded slowly. "He didn't just show us history. He made us part of it. That's when it happened." The youngest crew member, Lieutenant Caven, collapsed. In the hallway, Vala and Zern rushed to him. His body was convulsing, his eyes wide open but unfocused. Whispering in a voice not his own, "The stars burned, and I walked through the ash. I remember the fall of Talaran. I remember building the first bridge across the dark." Zern gripped Caven's shoulders. "He's reliving someone's life, a memory, but not Orin's." "No," Vala said, her voice cracking. "It's his own." Caven awoke hours later in the medical bay, breathing slow and heavy. I was there," he whispered. "I had different hands, older, stronger. I was human. I was standing on a silver tower. I watched a star die, and I recorded his death into a song. That was my task." Threx, now silent, turned to Zern. Zern replied without emotion. "The DNA Orin gave us, it's a key, a genetic key. When activated, it unlocks old lives, past selves, memories buried so deep, not even time could find them." "You mean we're—" Threx hesitated. Zern nodded. "We're not just explorers, not just aliens. We are—" He looked toward the stars. "We're recycled humans, descendants of the first, split, scattered, rewritten, reborn across galaxies, and now restored." Vala stepped forward, her eyes glassy. "But why? Why now?" Zern pointed to the wall, where Orin's silver symbol still pulsed faintly. "Because it's time to come home." Elsewhere on the ship, more crew members began to experience flashbacks, dreams of flying through black tunnels, walking on cities made of glass, hearing lullabies sung in frequencies only planets could produce, and everywhere, the same repeating line: "You were the beginning. Now you must become the memory." The ship, now alive with Orin's consciousness, began to hum, not loud, gentle, like music. A soft rhythm filled the halls, a song with no words, but it pulled at their hearts. Zern stood in the central chamber and spoke aloud. "What are you showing us, Orin?" The walls shimmered. A projection appeared. A map of the galaxy, but not how it looked today. It was a galaxy reconstructed the way it looked millions of years ago. At its center, a golden beacon blinked. Orin's voice echoed across the ship. "Return to where it began. The cradle. The memory must be restored." Captain Threx looked at the map. "Set a course," he said. Suddenly, red lights blinked across the ship. "Not from danger, from the discs." The black and silver discs hovered together in the control room. Between them floated the third, the red-blue one that had unlocked Orin's firewall. All three were now synchronized, spinning in perfect balance. "Memory complete," said the ship's AI. Final fragment unlocked. A final memory file appeared, but this one was different. This one had Caven's name on it, and it was dated for 3 billion years ago. "What the hell?" Threx muttered. Caven stepped forward, and as he touched the projection, his voice changed again. "This is not a return. It's a reboot." In a split-second flash, the crew saw the truth. Humanity had once ruled the stars. They had traveled beyond time, but they became too powerful, too connected. So a decision was made, not by war, but by choice. To hide, to forget, to be reborn as many, and later, to be remembered by one. Orin. He was the seed of memory, the firewall, and now the humans scattered across species were starting to remember. The discs were not technology. They were messages in a bottle. DNA was not just life. It was a library, and every single member of the crew was a chapter in the human story. The ship soared through the last edge of collapsing time. The galaxy map reconstructed from Orin's memory glowed ahead like a path made of golden veins, each line pulsing toward one point: the cradle, the place where it had all begun, and the place where it would all awaken again. Every crew member was silent now, not from fear, but from a strange, Unshakable feeling deep inside their bones. Recognition. Lieutenant Caven sat near the front window, staring at the stars. He blinked slowly, his breathing calm. He had changed. He was still Caven, but also not. He remembered dying on Mars. He remembered laughing with a daughter born of light. He remembered walking across Saturn's rings before they ever formed. Not dreams, memories. Captain Threx stood at the command panel, silent. He no longer barked orders. The ship didn't need them. It knew where to go because Orin had become part of it, and perhaps, now, they were all part of Orin. They exited jump space just beyond a dead system, no stars, no planets, just floating ruins. But in the center, surrounded by silent debris, a soft golden glow called them forward. There was the cradle, not a planet, not a base, but a sphere of living light, the size of a small moon, orbiting nothing, wrapped in a protective veil made of time itself. It pulsed with colorless energy, invisible unless one looked with memory instead of sight. "Are we seeing this?" Vala asked. Zerd stepped forward. "No, we're remembering it." As the ship drew closer, the three discs silver, black, and red blue rose from their locked containment and floated toward the main deck. The walls of the ship shimmered with ancient text. Not words, emotions shaped into light. Then Orin's voice returned, soft and strong. The firewall held. Now unlock the final seed. The discs fused midair, creating a sphere of radiant gold. It projected one last hologram this time, not of Orin, but of a woman. She had soft brown skin, dark eyes, and wore robes that shimmered with star maps. She smiled gently. "Welcome back," she said. "If you're seeing this, the first firewall has held. Orin did his part. Now it is time to remember who you are." Her name was Alara, the first mind, and what she revealed changed everything. Humanity was the first species to understand the code behind reality. They learned how to write. Inside DNA, not just biology, but thought. They could store galaxies and songs, time and skin, stories and memory. But when they saw the future, they saw war. Not from others, from themselves. So they made a choice, not to erase, but to forget, to bury their power across the universe, to be born again in smaller pieces. As aliens, as travelers, as scientists, as poets. The Watchers weren't villains. They were guardians of ignorance designed to keep memory sealed. But even they couldn't stop Orin. He was the exception. He chose to remember. And now, so had they. Captain Threx fell to one knee, overwhelmed, not by pain, but by weight. The weight of history, of being part of something ancient, of being human. The ship landed gently on the surface of the cradle. The golden light did not burn. It wrapped around them like warmth, like memory itself. As the crew stepped out, their suits vanished. No fear, no need. The air was not made of atoms but of feelings. Every step was a memory. Every breath was a chapter. Zern wept openly as the cradle opened its heart. Inside, not machines, but souls, stored as living patterns, the rest of Orin's kind, waiting. Some were soldiers, some were builders, some were children. All were human. A great voice echoed not from one mouth, but from every molecule of the cradle. "Do you accept your truth?" The crew answered not in words, but by remembering. Their DNA unfolded. Their minds expanded. They saw every life they had ever lived. A star captain, a desert farmer, a child who saved a cat in a burning village, a girl who held her brother's hand as their world fell. They were all real, and they were all them. The cradle released a final signal, a pulse that traveled across the stars, lighting up long-dead ruins, reactivating buried disks, whispering to hidden cells and bodies across galaxies. And slowly, others began to wake. Aliens stared at the sky, suddenly struck by tears. Machines froze, hearing lullabies they never knew they knew. Stars flickered like candles remembering their names. Across the galaxy, the phrase echoed, "We were always here." Back on the ship, Orin's body, his last shell, grumbled peacefully. He had completed his mission. Not to be remembered, but to make others remember. The firewall faded. The cradle bloomed. And across space, humanity rose again, not to conquer, not to rule, but simply